Today we have a great friend of mine who I met through coffee, and he's actually the founder of Long Beach Coffee Club. He's a great dude, a great heart, and let's give a hand of applause to Matthew Torres. Hello, Matthew.
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good, man. So the whole purpose of me actually trying to record this with you, man, is to actually get to know you a little bit more about who you are, and not just the coffee guy that everybody knows. You know.
Yeah.
I want to know who's behind Long Beach Coffee Club. So I know you started that as an intent to join the community, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But I want to get to know you personally, and I'm pretty sure all the listeners are gonna love to hear, like, where did you grow up, and how did you become to be who you are now, man?
Sweet.
So where were you born and raised, my man?
So I was born in a small port city on the other side of the bridges called San Pedro, and I grew up there until I was in middle school, and then I moved to Tucson, of all places, in Arizona, and went to middle school, high school, and then ended up staying there for university, and then moved back. But when I graduated, it was 2009, so it was like in the middle of the recession. So as a college student, it was very challenging to get a job anywhere. And moved back actually in with my dad in Wilmington, California, if somebody's familiar with like the harbor area in the South Bay. And then throughout the years, I moved to Long Beach, and I've been in Long Beach for the last 8 going on 9 years.
Amazing, man. So you say you went to you moved to Tucson, Arizona, right?
Correct.
So how do you like the weather out here in California now?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with it, and it's like, if you know, it's one of those things where, like, if you experience it and then it's taken away from you, you definitely don't take it for granted after you come back.
Yeah.
So, these summers are a lot easier than Arizona summers.
Awesome, man. Also, when you went to school, you did high school and college and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you graduate from college?
So I graduated from the University of Arizona, which is in Tucson. I started studying business finance, and then I was lucky to know that, like, I didn't really want to go down that path. So I switched my major to business communications, because I've always loved talking to people, and hence the coffee breaks. So and from there I graduated in 2009. So I was there for 4 years. Great school. Super lucky to go there and learn what I learned, and and then started my career in Southern California.
The communication is not easy at all. Trust me. I mean, I just started doing this, and I have a hard time talking to people. You know, if I feel like it's easy when you're like in person.
Yeah.
But like having the idea that I'm gonna record this, or I'm gonna do this so that everybody else can listen to, like, I get into my head so much that I struggle with it.
Yeah, with the coffee breaks, even though, like, I majored in communications and I love to conversate, I definitely felt that. And then there's that sort of imposter syndrome of, like, I don't know if that internal thing in your mind says, like, why are you doing this? You're not good enough, and all those lies, right? Where, no, and honestly, so with coffee breaks, it's been like a full sprint, if you've been like watching, and we've done probably around 75 in the matter of 5 weeks. So I was doing up to 4 a day, and you definitely get better, and it is, have grace on yourself, and know that it becomes more comfortable. But I still am a deer in headlights at times and it's like people like Scott Rao and Peter Giuliano and Keith White, like all of these people that like I wouldn't imagine if somebody told me pre-COVID and quarantine that I was going to be interviewing.
Yeah, it's quite challenging, man. I mean, trust me, I had some training in the past where I just recorded for fun and try to learn how to edit and all that stuff. The audio, how to connect the microphone to my computer. I didn't even know how to do that. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah, you'll probably have to teach me because I've been kind of doing it the bootleg way where it's just like Bluetooth. It's definitely like such a probably not the best setup. I love how you have a mic. Like this is my mic through my headphones. So you're definitely like light years ahead of me.
Oh, I did a little bit of research, and then I just went online and purchased the cheapest stuff I could find. It's still good quality, regardless of the price. But tell me a little bit about young Matthew. Tell me about like who are the most influential people in your life, man.
Yeah, I think like thinking back, I think for me, I'm a person of faith. So like I would say like Jesus is like shapes who I'm striving to be. And with that, I think it's just like basic things like being kind and being a good neighbor and looking out for things. A small anecdote of that was the other day, because I'm working from home, I was walking my dog, and this woman flagged me down with her car hood open, and I'm usually not home at that time. I'm usually at work, and I got to kind of help her. Long story short, call AAA and get her battery started. And all of this is an older Latino woman that all her kids kind of moved out, and she was scared to go outside with the riots and looting in Long Beach and protesting, and was terrified. And I think for me, it's just kind of seeing those small acts of kindness and doing that. Yeah. And then I would say my dad's like a really Mexican American. Our family on his side, it came from Mexico, so Michoacan and Zacatecas. So it's just always like work ethic and kind of put your head down and work as hard as possible and be a good role model. My mom was more of the Chicano side. So like growing up in like Whittier and East LA and like cruising and things like that. So kind of got both sides of my Latino heritage. And then, like my wife has just been making me a better man overall, iron sharp as iron kind of thing.
Everybody says that, man. Behind a great man, there's an even better woman.
Yeah, and she's a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I met my wife also, and we've been married for about 1.5 years now.
Congratulations.
It's been amazing, dude. I mean, they definitely, point out little things that we work on together as a team, and we grow together as a couple.
Yeah. How'd you guys meet?
We actually met through work. We used to work at restaurants.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, she came into work. I was already working at that restaurant called Calendar's Grill here in Culver City, and then she joined the team. And after that, we sort of like started talking to each other, and destiny, the future, and all that.
Yeah. And are you up in Culver City, or where do you live?
So I live in North Inglewood, which is actually borderline Culver City, Inglewood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I used to work near that neighborhood. Do you know a place called Mike's Deli?
Yes.
It's like a sandwich space. Yeah. So I used to work in Ladera Heights, right there at that 24-hour fitness. I worked there for like 3 years.
So I actually lived down La Cienega from Slauson. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after you pass Centinela, that's where I stay. So it's cool. Like borderline Inglewood, but then it's Ladera Heights, and then you have Culver City, and then I think Westchester.
Exactly.
So
it's just like
in the middle of everything.
Of it. Yeah.
Actually, cool. One of the most iconic places, I believe, would be Pan's, the restaurant. I don't know if you.
Oh yeah. They shoot a lot of movies there.
Yeah, a lot of movies, dude. It's very iconic.
Misunderstand. Huh. You know, I I think like I'm super passionate, and sometimes that I think my passion gets sometimes misunderstood for like arrogance um, or something along those lines. So I think over the time as I matured as a leader, I think I'm more mindful of just trying to have focused passion because, yeah, and then listening more than I talk.
Yes, that's very hard sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude. Sometimes, especially when we don't think about what we're gonna say before we say it, it
that's a huge one. Yeah,
can destroy. You can destroy or break a lot of things doing
for
that.
sure.
So tell me about a little bit about your everyday routine, man.
Everyday routine. So I tried. I'm a early riser. I think that's why I probably get along so well with baristas because you guys are up really early. I usually wake up around 5:30 every morning, and then I've been doing it for probably off and on for the last 5 6 years, and I just found that having a slow morning is helpful, and you can control that. I used to, when I just got into work, I used to just like roll out of bed and then rush to work and like eat on the road and not really have my mornings to myself. So, waking up early is really important to me. Reading, writing. I've been getting into meditation over the last year or so, and just prayer in the morning. Yeah, and then I get into work. So I work for a Danish speaker company called Soundbox, and so because of COVID, I'm working from home, and yeah, so the small breaks I do have, I fill them with those interviews, and that's why I call them coffee breaks
They're very
because I'm not
entertaining.
commuting an hour each way, so I got a
Yeah.
little bit extra time. So usually that's my daily routine. My nights, I think they change. I'm not very like I can't stay up late because I wake up so early. So around 9:30 or 10, I start like shutting down.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for the weekends when like friends want to get together or just hang out. I'm beat. So but yeah, that's usually my like daily routines.
What about the quality time with your wife?
Yeah, so that's usually Sundays in the evenings. Some evenings, I would say like 3 times a week. And then usually Sundays, I usually dedicate, we have like family time and kind of turn off the phone and,
Yeah.
get together. She is in quarantine with me. So I think like from like creating, sorry, I'm just getting a call.
No, you're good.
Just creating like that, just being intentional with that time, I think is an important aspect. But yeah, so I'll say probably most evenings, but we also do like things where we have like our community, we go together, we like hang out with family, but all of these things are now like through Zoom and through things like this.
Yeah.
So it's been a learning process.
It is, man. Technology is kind of challenging sometimes. When it works, it's awesome, but then we rely on it so much that when something doesn't function well, we lose it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what about family? You say you have a little bit of Latino in you, but I rarely hear you speak Spanish.
Yeah, so I grew up. I'm around third or fourth generation on both sides. So I like on my side, like growing up, both my dad and mom are Latino, like they're both Mexican, and they just didn't speak Spanish in the household. So I picked it up through my grandmother, who's from Zacatecas, who migrated here. Has a crazy story with her aunt that was a nun and kind of took on her cousin's identity. That's probably another podcast, but yeah. So yeah, mi español is malo, but my wife, she's Colombian and Guatemalan, so her first language was Spanish. She grew up in Downey, in North Long Beach. So she's been practicing with me, but my Spanish is not where I would like it to be.
Well, I think learning a second language is challenging sometimes. I grew up in Mexico and I came over to the United States, and just trying to learn the English language, it was so difficult to me, man. I used to cry to try to go back to Mexico, and it was challenging. So,
what part of Mexico?
I was born and raised in Oaxaca, Mexico.
Yeah,
So
south.
it's a small little town, like a village, you will say, called Matatlan. So very, very indigenous. And then my grandparents speak a dialect, which is
wow.
When friends used to hear my parents talk, that they were like, "Are they speaking Chinese?" It's a little entertaining to listen to.
So do you still speak the dialect Spanish and English now?
No, I actually never learned the dialect language.
Got it.
I understand about probably 75% of it, but I never really learned how to speak the dialect. So my main language was always Spanish. And so the process from an immigrant family is dad moved out here first, then work, save enough money to bring mom, and then after that there's 4 siblings in my family who one by one they start saving money and bringing us over to the States. I mean, everybody had a hard time. I think my younger brothers settled in a little easier because they were like 3-4 years old. But I mean, I had built half of my life in Mexico, so moving out here was quite a challenge. But yeah, I get it. I mean, being Mexican, I don't even eat spicy, dude. And so, and the reason why is because I'm the firstborn in my family. So I'm like the first grandkid. And my grandparents would like cook a separate pot of food that it wouldn't be spicy. So I never learned how to eat spicy. I was spoiled. So every time I get that thing of, every time I say I don't eat spicy, everybody's like, "Aren't you Mexican?" It's like, I guess, but not every Mexican eats spicy.
Yeah, I mean, it's being Mexican myself, I grew up eating spicy food, but not knowing other countries and populations and foods in Latin America, I didn't realize that Mexico specifically focuses on spicy food. And when I go to Guatemala or Colombia, they don't really eat spicy food and arepas or different things like that. But I think all in all, this is generalizations, right? There's it's just a preference.
Well, speaking of food, what are some of your best meals you've had or dishes you can create?
I've had so many.
Something that stands out the most, something that you're like, "Oh, I have an antojo," and like, that's what I want.
Yeah, so for my birthday, I always ask for chili verde. It's my favorite meal, with like fresh tortillas de harina. I would say that's number one. Number two is probably good Korean barbecue. I really miss it during quarantine. It's just, I think it's one of my favorite things out there, and I really enjoy the Korean culture. And then I would say 3 is my wife and I got to go to Tokyo for a honeymoon, and ramen there was on another level. So I would say those 3 meals make me the most happy.
Dope, man. What about the one dish you wish you never had, or you wish it doesn't exist?
So if people know me, that they know this already, but people will probably judge me for this, but I don't really eat seafood.
Oh, dude.
So that's like a huge thing, especially in the Mexican culture, where like my dad fished a lot growing up.
Growing up in San Pedro, dude, you have like the best
fish market. Yeah. And it's still like my dad and cousin will go lobster diving and catch fish, and if it's cooked well, I'll eat it, but it's not something I enjoy. I did have sushi in Tokyo, but I mean, it's not something that I love.
Nice. And you said chile verde for your birthday. When is that date?
So it passed recently. It passed in quarantine. It was April 5th, and so I had chili verde. I had it from a place called Los Compadres
That's
in Long Beach.
amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Another birthday, huh?
Yeah.
Another birthday down the history during quarantine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Grateful for another year.
What about 3 people you wish you can sit down and eat with?
Oh, that's a good question. For me, getting into the interviewing, and it's top of mind, I would say Oprah, just because I think she's one of the best interviewers of all time, and I've been like taking a deep dive into just how she interviews and how she pulls out things. Anthony Bourdain, if he was still alive, I think how he looks at culture and experiences people is something that is not as easy as it looks. He makes it look simple. And then, man, there's a lot. I don't know why, but
I mean, you mentioned pretty great people, you know.
Yeah, I would say Benjamin Franklin, because he did so much in his lifetime, and he is like a businessman, a politician, an inventor. And I tried to read his biography. I got like halfway through, and it's so dense. So I would just want to hear him. Like, he has like specific rules to living and things like that. So it'd just be like pretty awesome to like chat with him.
So seafood would definitely not be one of your last meals then.
No, it would probably be chili verde, Schoenbau, or like a bacon cheeseburger or something.
That's one of your last meals, you know. So
yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So where do you think you get your best ideas from, as far as like creating what you do for a living, or the coffee club?
Yeah, I think it's just like kind of creating space and not being busy all the time. And then just having time with my own thoughts. I usually get those big ideas through that, like meditation or just space in the morning that's slow. And then sometimes if I'm really, really like kind of hammering it, and I'm really passionate about something, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and then I usually have a notebook that I'll write ideas down. So
that's one thing I've been trying to do, because at night sometimes when I can't sleep, that's when some ideas come into head, and it's like, if I don't write them down, that's it. Like next morning, they're gone, dude.
Exactly.
And there's nights where I lay down and I just like see myself like talking to you or interviewing someone else, and it's like, this is what I'm gonna ask, and this is how it's gonna go, and I have everything planned. And then if I don't write it down, the next morning I wake up and it's like, man, what was that I was talking about? You know, it's kind of challenging.
Challenging. I usually carry this guy with me. It's just like a little notebook, and I forgot even what brand it is, but it's just like a book that I keep by my bedstand or in my pocket. And then, I mean, I have notes. I have like thoughts all day, right? So I have that, and then I try to write out my week every Sunday or Monday, and then that helps too.
Awesome. And then so you say you went to school you started college for one reason and switched to something else, right?
Yep.
This is so hard, dude. I don't know how you do it flawlessly when you're doing coffee breaks.
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, it's usually, so I have an outline of like the main things. I think the easier ones for me are like the Peter Giulianos that have a lot so you can research. The harder ones are like someone that you only see, I guess, like for me, like you only see a piece of me online, right? So of what I'm willing to show. But usually I think like I'm writing notes, or kind of, it's hard because you want to listen, but you also like, I connect these things as people are talking. So yeah, so that's usually like what I'm doing. And then I'm on my computer, so I'm like writing notes, and then this thing, I have like a tripod, and then like the computer screen's here. So yeah, it's kind of, it's something that I'm still not great at. There was
Yeah.
an interview with Scott Rao where like I was so nervous that I like ended it early. Like
Yeah, dude, I
he
get
was
it.
like,
I'm
"You want to
feeling
do
I'm
a Q and
feeling
A?"
nervous right now. You know, it's like
Oh, don't. Yeah, yeah. No, it's
it's
all
like
good, man.
it's like I lost what I was gonna ask you. Now I'm feeling
Yeah, and
nervous.
no, honestly, that happens where it'll probably come back to you. So just
Yeah.
give yourself
Well,
like,
it just
yeah,
did right now, but I was
yeah,
just thinking because I mean the main thing is like you went to school for for one purpose, right? Like you're majoring in
yeah.
one thing and then you switched it. My main question was whether what your mom and dad did as a job
Mm.
influenced what you were pursuing.
Yeah. So my dad, he worked for a company called Hughes Aircraft and Raytheon. And he was in like the defense and more in manufacturing. So I when I graduated college, I was going to go that path, but just didn't pan out. With my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom, and then she worked like part-time in a bunch of different jobs, anything from like the cruise lines when we were in San Pedro to a grocery store. So for me, I, I'm super lucky to like get the chance to go to university, and then from there, I think the hard thing was like at that time it was like the beginning of Facebook. So I knew like I love technology, so I wanted to go in the tech industry, and that's the place that I've been working for. Wow, it's been a long time. 20 like 11 years almost in the sense, but like directly for like 8 or 9 years. Um, but yeah, I think for me it was more of like how they shaped me in like their work ethic and things along those lines, not like the direct discipline that they worked in.
Awesome, man. What about something that you're passionate about but you don't like sharing with other people? Like
Mm.
something that you do aside from.
I'm like pretty open, so I usually
Yeah.
share a lot. I think for me, I'm getting, I don't know if you follow my like personal account. A lot of the times it was mostly either coffee or family related.
Yeah.
And um, during COVID or right before COVID, like in my late 20s, I'm 33 now. So in my late 20s, I, uh, I got like pretty depressed and anxious. So coming out of that, like I felt that coming into this year, just like a dark feeling. So I wanted to motivate myself every day. So I would post motivational things selfishly for myself. And then quarantine happened, and there was just so much chaos in the world that I think it helped me kind of stay positive during like bleak times. Uh, so yeah, maybe it's that. Like unless you know me really well, it's just like really positive things, like affirmations and motivational things. Just help me keep going through like tough times.
Well, being a person of faith, I'm impressed. I'm surprised you didn't pursue like being a priest or something.
Yeah, I asked God a couple times during prayer, and he's never given me a clear sign. So for me, I'm just gonna kind of keep bearing my cross and keep on my journey in the tech industry with the coffee club, and I'm good. We're happy. We got a roof over our head and food on the table, so I can't
Yeah,
complain.
man. So you say you're now working for a company selling audio equipment or
Hmm.
audio. What about the other hobby you have or the other business you founded? Tell me a little bit about Long Beach Coffee Club.
Yeah. So Long Beach Coffee Club started out of necessity. I wanted to learn more about coffee, and I didn't have the capacity to go into the coffee industry. Maybe like a Chuck, where he just quit everything and went in the coffee industry. I didn't, so I just wanted to learn more. So I created a group and was hoping there was a few other people that were kind of coffee nerds like me, and there was. And then throughout the time I got to know the industry, and then now I think we're just over 600 members in Long Beach, so it's like very hyper local. And for me, I thought it was going to be maybe 50 people, you know? So we've been going pretty strong for 4 years. I'm not really good with consistency in the sense of meeting on a regular schedule. I would give myself like certain years we would meet twice a month, other years we would meet once a month, but all of it was just creating a space for people to learn that were consumers, and then I would bring the coffee industry in to teach us over time. So yeah, I mean, it started as a meetup, and it went into a little bit of a business because of like we sold tickets to workshops and things and merch, but I think all in all, it's still like very much so a hobby, and we don't make a ton of money, but we make enough to like kind of give back to baristas and donate here and there. But yeah, and it's been a super awesome journey.
So then it started just for the love of coffee, not because you're in the industry.
Correct. Yeah.
So how do people find you, or how do people sign up, or
yeah, so the best place to do it, so we have a website, it's longbeachcoffee.club. There's a meetup. If you go to meetup and you're in LA or anywhere, you just put Long Beach Coffee Club. All of our workshops are now virtual because of COVID, and I'll probably be pretty risk averse getting back into in-person meetings for a while to make sure it's safe for people. And then our Instagram, Long Beach Coffee Club.
And you said it's mostly focused on people that are learning how to master the craft. I mean, get better at the craft, right? Not necessarily just coffee individuals.
Yeah. So it's more on like the customer side. I mean, everyone's welcome. There's baristas and people opening coffee shops that come along. But yeah, it's really designed for the consumer. So yeah, it's just people that want to learn more. Our last event was a pour over company called Cafec. And they're from Japan, and they do amazing ceramics. So they taught us how to do a pour over. Our next event is how to make cold coffee at home. So we're partnering with Barista Life LA, Lanisa, and she's going to teach us how to do that. Yeah, so we do things like that, and then sometimes we do really fun stuff like we did a whiskey and coffee tasting with Gary from Cafe Lux, which was really fun. And then we've gone to Austin's roastery and Redlands, Augie's. So we get to do like, it's just like for me, I just reach out to people, and then sometimes they're like, yeah, come hang out, and then we hang out.
What do you think that following this coffee side of your life helps you decompress from what you normally do as a living?
You know, definitely. I don't really work with my hands, so I think my first realization of why I loved coffee so much is I can make coffee with my hands, and it was just like one of the coolest things. So I definitely decompressing. I think that's what launched the coffee breaks, where I was so stressed and potentially going to get laid off, and it was just a very hard time. So my creative outlet was the coffee breaks.
Amazing. And how did you start going to the actual events? Because I know I originally met you at one of the throwdowns that
Dayglow, right?
Yeah, that was the one place I saw. We didn't even have a conversation, but we just like saw each other, and it's like the community was all together. You know, it was amazing. I don't think we actually had a conversation, but we did say hi to each other and stuff.
I remember
saw you like judging and all that, you know?
Yeah.
How did you get, I mean, from being a consumer to helping people learn how to brew, how do you get yourself involved with the actual competition side of
it? Yeah, you know, it's just like forging those relationships. I was a friend with Chuck for a long time, and he's the head of the LATNT. And then I know Tom for a while. He was helping out with the local shop in Long Beach. And I think, like with anything in life, forging strong relationships will help you with everything. Um, yeah, the times where I was a judge for events, it's always funny. I've been a judge, I would say probably like a half dozen times. So I've been a judge in Orange County, LA County, in Tijuana.
Wow.
So it's been cool. And the first time I was a judge, it was in North Long Beach at Black Ring Coffee, and I was just like, hey, like I don't feel right, like I don't know. And then actually Chuck walked me in, Christy, who is now, I think, in Boulder. She was working at Stumptown for a long time, but they walked me through, okay, this is good, this is bad, this is what you look for, this is symmetry, this is, you have to fill your cup up, all of the rules, right? And I'm very meticulous, so I'm pretty good at that. And through that, I built up some sort of like a judging skill set. It's like if you're a judge for the SCA competitions, like most of those people aren't in coffee, they
Yeah.
just get trained. And I kind of got hands-on training. And then remember the biggest competition I was at was the LA Coffee Con, I think. It was a Coffee Con or Coffee Fest, one of those. And it was at did you go to the Espresso Depot big pour over or
I
competition?
No, I didn't make it to that one, but I mean, I did compete to the previous ones leading to that one.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, it was more like a lot on the line. I think every competition you have a lot on the line, but there
Yeah.
was probably a couple hundred people there and people that were from Korea and Puerto Rico. So I think for me, that's when I really learned how to judge, like to the SCA standard, and then, or I guess latte art master standard. But yeah, I think that was a very long-winded answer to how
Yeah.
did you get involved. But I think forging relationships and then just
No,
learning
and that's
on the
perfect.
job learning.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I kind of love to hear, because the whole purpose of this is, the first time I met you, I thought you were like fully involved in coffee,
Oh
and
yeah,
little do I know, it's like you're not really like
for sure.
you're not really integrated into like the whole coffee career, but
Yeah.
you're part of the community.
Yeah. And
So
it's just love, right? It's love and passion, and you're interested. And I talked to, I don't know if you know Eduardo, but he works for Mayorga, and he has this, not a similar story to me, but he has an interesting story where he got taught how to roast and from like a San Franciscan and just hit the ground running. He just
yeah,
hustled and taught himself. And yeah, I think if you're really passionate about something, you'll figure out a way, if it's through books or documentary or hands-on training, if you're lucky enough, like Eduardo, to just learn.
yeah. But during all this process of learning and all, sometimes people tend to, you know, fail at at something we're doing. So, you think you've have any failures in life that you've learned from?
Mm. Yeah, a lot. I mean, how long do you got?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, you know, I think the one that's most practical probably for this setting is early on in Long Beach Coffee Club. I don't think I was as careful with like paying people as I should. So I think maybe like it looked like I was trying to take advantage of amazing people. And I think during that time, I got feedback from somebody that was launching it with me, Kim. She was just like these people are spending their time. They're baristas. Like you need to pay them for their time. And for me, it was all just fun, right? So I wasn't. I didn't see that perspective. So I think that was definitely a huge failure. That like I'm very upfront where sometimes things are sponsored and there is money, but sometimes it's not. So I think overall, just being mindful of like just in if somebody volunteers their time, that's one thing, but not assuming somebody's going to volunteer their time, and then creating, I guess, ticket prices so then you can pay somebody for gas and just their time, because like it's fun for the consumers, but like it's a job and it's an industry. And I think being mindful of that was a learning the first year that was a crash course. And I definitely am grateful for the feedback. And now, like, if it's any kind of event, we get the awkward money talk ahead, so there's
Yeah.
not any like bad blood or like kind of resentment there.
Nice. And then you're talking a little bit about how you dealt with 2020 and COVID-19. How was that like when you found out that they were pretty much launching the stay at home?
Yeah, it was, my company I work for is in Denmark, in Copenhagen. So they sent us to work for home probably like a week before it was ordered. And the work I do, I'm able to just do it remotely. So that is very amazing. I think if I didn't have work, I would probably be way more stressed out, where I kind of lost myself in work, and then all like the coffee breaks, and then like, yeah, just like sprinting and trying to do all the things that I wanted to do, but I always had excuses for, I think that helped me during quarantine. So I didn't really have time to like freak out as much. I think I did
Yeah.
have a couple days where like the news got to me, and then I realized I should stop like consuming a lot of the news, and all of some that were factual, some that weren't factual, and then just kind of making myself more anxious than needed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand what you're saying with the whole stressing out. I
Yeah.
work in a coffee shop as a barista, and my job requires for me to deal with people. So when they started, having all those guidelines,
Yeah.
and then leading to letting us go and stuff, yeah, it was very scary, man.
For
Not
sure.
knowing. The first month, I feel like I took it very light, where it's like, okay, 1 month's gonna go by, and then we're gonna go back to work. Then the second month came in, and that's when I freaked out the most.
Yeah.
So
And what now? Where are you at? Is it still up in the air to see like what's safe and what's not safe?
correct. So Menotti's, where I currently work at, they start serving like takeout,
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't really had the opportunity to hire the whole team back.
Got it.
So I'm
Okay.
just sort of waiting, and then just patiently seeing what's the next move. Like you said, the coffee community is so big that I'm pretty sure I can reach out to someone and they'll be willing to help me. But tell
Yeah,
me
for
tell
sure.
me a little bit about what you did as a project other than your current job during COVID-19.
Probably the biggest is the coffee breaks.
Yeah, tell me a little about what coffee breaks is.
Yeah, so I wanted to, when COVID was happening, I saw a bunch of posts and things from coffee shops like Menotti's and Lord Windsor and Rose Park, and all of these coffee shops around the area that I love kind of closing down or pivoting and having all of these restrictions. So I knew it was going to have like a lasting effect, because it was just something no one has ever dealt with before. So I wanted to take a snapshot of it and have those conversations. And I didn't see a lot of people having the direct conversations of like how the coffee industry is going to be shaped by COVID. So I just decided to like reach out to a handful of people. I didn't think it was going to go as long as it did. I probably would have talked myself out of it, like, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
I was gonna cuss, so I was like, I won't cuss. Like,
you can. I mean,
yeah.
when I upload it, it gives me the option to say whether it's explicit or not.
Yeah.
So
We'll keep
you
it.
can.
We'll keep it for the kids. But no, yeah. It started like that, and then as more people said yes, I was like, okay. I started filling up my calendar, and then every lunch break or like small 30-minute break, I would try to fill it with to talk to somebody, seeing how things were, and yeah, it just I think picked up momentum, and I reached out to like a couple people that I didn't think were going to respond, and they did, and
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's exactly what I did today. I was like, man, because the whole intent of this thing is to be in person, right? One on
Yeah.
one. And so today I was like, well, I'm not going back to work yet.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening. Like, I have all this equipment, I'm not even using it. So I was like, I just started sending like direct messages through Instagram,
For sure.
and a couple of people responded, a couple of people love the idea.
Yeah.
But I send out the little survey too, where you just fill out your name and stuff. But I was just like, we could do it in person, we could do it through Zoom or something. But no one really got back to me. And then you got back to me and you're like, let's do it today. And I was like, dope.
Yeah.
I got super
I
excited
love
when
it.
you said let's do it today.
Yeah, no, thank you for, anytime, like, thank you for spending the time. I think it's always something where, I love to see like projects like this, right? Because they are a lot of work, and I know they're a lot of
Yeah.
work because, setting it up and thinking about questions. I think the thing you're doing is having that survey, because that's gonna like help a lot, in
Yeah.
the long run. And I would just say, for somebody that is busy, and probably a lot of the coffee shop owners or people you're reaching out to, I think it's easier to do a Zoom. So if you lead with, I usually, like, my secret sauce, I'll tell you, like, how I ask for people is just say, like, hey, I know you're busy. Because everyone's busy. And then I just say, hey, like, I have these openings, so specific times. And I look at the calendar, and then I try to keep it consistent. And then from there, I just say, we do it remotely, just because it's easier than coordinating schedules of like
Yeah.
in person. And especially because of COVID, there's still the risk, right, of transmitting it somehow. So I think all in all, those three things have really helped me kind of get up to speed really quick. And just being nice, like, I've had a lot of like just silence or no's or all of that, and just thank you for responding, or like, I don't get salty, like,
Yeah.
I'm happy, like, you're even, like, you read it.
Yeah, no, like you said doing it remotely, how you learn how to do all that stuff. The idea for me was like, I have all this equipment. It was May 24th, I think, was going to be the deadline for the second wave of COVID-19 restrictions.
Yeah.
So I said, after this date, then I could start like scheduling appointments and like getting to meet people and this and that. And then next thing you know, is they stretch it to like July 4th or something. So here we are. So yeah, and I was thinking about that today when I was like, well, nothing's really changing right now. Nothing's happening, and I'm unemployed, so it's like I gotta make it happen. I gotta reach out to people, and
I love it.
Zoom or even Instagram Live or something, just like you're
Yeah.
doing. But the other obstacle that I mentally have, or anyone that starts something has, I believe, is just that mental block, right? Where you're so negative with yourself, where you're like,
Yeah.
well, like originally when I thought about doing a podcast, it was like, oh, well, Matt's already doing the coffee breaks, so he's already doing it. I'm not going to do it. Or people like uploading videos online of how they're brewing coffee and stuff. And I was like, well, there goes that, like, I'm not going to do anything because they're already doing it. And it was just me psychologically holding back,
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, if everyone in the world had a podcast, like, your podcast still going to be different, because how you look at life, your perception, and like what you pull from people is always just going to be different. So no, I think about the same things, because, like, for me, I saw all of the coffee shops and roasters, they're just doing brew videos, which I use a lot. And I was just like, oh, it's probably not great for me to do brew videos, because I'm not even going to touch the level of like brew videos from Onyx or something, or Blue Bottle or one of the bigger guys. So yeah, no, I get those same things, but I think, like, for me, it's like really specific focus, and that's what's helped me kind of go with it. I'm looking at turning off the coffee breaks. We'll see if it's this week or probably next week.
Yeah.
and I started with Andrew from Rose Park. So you're gonna hear it first that my secret is like he's gonna end it too. And I
Wow.
don't know. It's just like one of those things where you're just like he's the beginning and the end. And I
Yeah.
think it's a chapter, right? Where a lot of people are like, all right, you have all this momentum. What's next? And it's just like if there's something, I got to interview some amazing people for Black Lives Matter. And maybe that's next of something I focus on is diversity in the coffee industry.
That is such a big conversation to have, man. I mean,
Yeah,
2020 brought so many things this year,
for sure.
and part of that is definitely the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
So it's a little sensitive, I believe,
Yeah.
and quite a big conversation. But we're bringing nothing but love in this podcast, man.
Heck yeah.
Which even my name, the whole Instagram handle, it's Juan Loves Coffee. There's so many times where I wanted to change it, but it was up there for so long that everybody already knew me for Juan Loves Coffee. Yeah. It was like, I don't know, I feel like I want to change it to something else. It just doesn't ring a bell to me. But it's like people love it, and I was like, all right, well, it's staying. So tell me.
It's a good name, man. I do love it. I don't know if you know Peter. Peter is blessed. He's a technician, like a espresso technician. He's a Guatemalteco. But yeah, I knew him for the longest time as his screen name, which is Peter is blessed, and I'm
Dude,
just like,
that's the funny thing. Like you go to a coffee event like Coffee Fest, or we just had the competitions in Orange County.
Yeah.
And you only know people by their handle, by their social media handle, which is, I find it so funny, dude. Because when I first met the people from New York at Coffee Fest here at the convention center downtown LA, the very first minute we met, we were always in touch through Instagram. But even though we were strangers from two different states, the minute we got together, it was like we knew each other so well. But we only knew each other by our Instagram handles, dude. It was hilarious. Yeah.
I love it. Did you meet who is it? Joe and
Javi, Prof, and all the gang that uses Express the State of Mind gang,
Some good people out there.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So what about your handles, man? I only know the Long Beach Coffee Club. That's the only way I knew you were on Instagram.
Yeah, so my personal one is Matthew C. Torres. That's my kind of personal. It's shifted from family photos to more motivational stuff. And then I've been kind of my finger kind of on the pulse with Black Lives Matter and protests and things like that. It's important to me. And then I have another handle that it's been kind of through a couple of evolutions of it started as Lore, which is for me the intersection of coffee and culture, and I had a bunch of ideas for that, and then it changed for a bit to something called the LA Coffee Society, because I was thinking about doing a club in LA, but there's already the amazing LA Coffee Club that's a subscription, so I didn't want any confusion there. So went down that road, but I was happy with Long Beach Coffee Club as the community. So now it's back at Lore Coffee, and for me, it's just what I'm interested in coffee on the other side of things, like the design and how culture affects you. There's Ethiopian coffee ceremonies, there's Cuban coffee, there's Café de Olla from Mexico. There's all of these amazing cultural coffee things, and I'm getting to that point. But that's another project that
what about your personal drink? When you make your cup of coffee, how do you make it? I mean, do you own an espresso machine? Do you purely do pour overs, or just instant coffee?
No, I do pour over. So I have that Café, which is a kind of it looks like a V60, but it's a flower dripper, which is really nice. And then I do a Chemex, either one of those two. Nice. Is pour over. I don't have an espresso machine. Somebody gave me a mocha pot. I haven't explored that yet. Have you messed around with a mocha pot?
A little bit, but
is it easy?
It is fairly easy, just depending on how syrupy you want the coffee to be.
Yeah.
Just you mess with the grind setting and stuff. But I sort of like stopped using one when someone said that because of all the pressure that's built up in there. Because some people like to do it really fine and then like compress it, and it's technically like like a bomb. Like if something goes wrong, I think it's gonna explode. But I've never heard a story like that. Just somebody mentioned that, where it's like, well, there's a lot of pressure building in there, like it could explode, So.
Oh man, I'm terrified.
Yeah, no, there hasn't been anything recorded or said. Someone had a strategy like that. What about when you go to coffee shops? What's your go-to drinks?
Usually espresso because I can't make it at home. I getting into coffee, I had friends that were baristas and they always ordered espresso. So I think it's like one of those aspects of when I was growing up, I saw like grown-ups drinking whiskey neat. So I thought that was a cool thing. So the same thing with coffee. Yeah, I learned to like it and enjoy it. And then now I think I have a pretty good palate for it. And yeah, so that's usually my go-to drink is like a double shot, and or like a filter. Like I usually don't do pour overs. It's just time consuming at coffee shops. So
you understand, man. You understand.
Yeah.
But what about, do you ever mix espresso with milk or anything?
Slowly. I'm a purist at heart. I don't like shame people for adding milk, but like I just love espresso. I do a Joe Balter or like cortado every now and then. Sometimes I'll do a cappuccino, but I won't do a latte.
It depends where you get the cappuccinos too. Some people, I mean, every shop varies in how they make their drinks. But yeah, what about, you say you like whiskey neat? Do you drink whiskey neat, or do you drink any preference on alcohol drinks?
Yeah, so because of quarantine, I've been drinking a little bit, probably more than I should. But yeah, so this past weekend, a friend, he like introduced me to a bunch of different scotches and whiskeys from around the world, so I got to get into that. I do like natural wine because they're just like really complex.
Yeah.
There's a really dope coffee shop, natural wine shop in Whittier called Sala. And Derek owns that. He's a great guy. And let's see. And then beers, I usually like two ends of the spectrum. I like a really light Pilsner if it's really hot outside and I want something like cold, like a German Pilsner. I do like sour beers, but it has to be like a good sour. Like there's a place in Long Beach called Beechwood. They have a special sour beer, like speakeasy kind of thing called the Blendery, and it's probably one of my favorites.
I mean, I usually don't drink, but tell me a little bit about sour beer, because I mean, just the fact of like hearing sour, it's like, I mean,
it sounds gross, right? I honestly, I wish I knew more. If you want to talk about like somebody that knows coffee and knows beer, Noah, who is Cool Roast Curves. I had him on coffee breaks, but yeah, he can probably explain sours a lot more.
But what about the reason why you drink it? Like from a regular beer, I mean, this has sour in front of it, but what's the feeling you get from drinking
it? It changes flavor a lot, so it's kind of like a pretty complex Ethiopian coffee where like it'll start kind of peachy and then it'll like turn to something else and then have another turn as the body like sits on your tongue. Sours do that with like, it kind of like starts acidic and then it will like have different flavors. So you'll get like pineapple, and even some are like spicy flavors and things along those lines. Matters what they put in the sour cask. But so I just like complex flavors. I know that sounds
like you like to, but sounds like you like to challenge your palate a lot.
For sure. Yeah.
Have you ever gone to like a vineyard or something where you like taste wine?
A couple times, not a lot, but I do like wine. I don't know. maybe it's just the intimidation factor of like some wine people aren't the nicest, but most of the wine people I've found that are pretty nice. But they got the elitist thing going on.
When you say they're not nice, it's because they get a little snobby with the description of the wine, or what?
Yeah, I think like, I don't know. I'm always from the school of like, there's no dumb questions,
Yeah.
even if it's just like a basic question, like,
Correct.
why does wine have legs on, like when you shake it and it like looks like it has like things on them, and there's probably like a very scientific description for that. But I would say most of like the real wine people, like sommeliers and things, they kind of speak in another language.
But I feel that way about like coffee people. Not that they're snobby, but some people definitely, the way they communicate.
Yeah,
it's very direct sometimes, and I get that same feeling with coffee people sometimes.
For sure, and I think it's like you got one end of the spectrum that's super caffeinated, and the other end of the spectrum that's a little intoxicated. So yeah, we'll see.
That's true, man. But yeah, dude. I mean, one question I want to ask you, and it's regarding like one word that's on my handle and this logo that's behind the screen here, and that word is love. In your own words, I just want you to tell me what that word means to you.
In one word?
No, not in one word, but this one word. Like, express yourself as much.
It's like the meaning of life.
Yeah.
I think like from that, it's, if it starts with love and ends with love, then you can't get it wrong.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's how I see it. It's like part of life, and for me, it just stands with like everything I do, right? Passion.
Yeah.
There's love to everything we do. So yeah, dude, I'm happy you feel that way about that word.
For sure, man.
And we need a lot of that right now.
That's very true.
Matt, it was really awesome, dude. Great learning experience. Just talking to you and telling me little things about how you do your interviews as well made me feel a little better.
Heck yeah, man.
You kind of rescued me there for a little bit because I got stuck earlier, and I mean, I know the camera probably can't detect it, but I was like red, bro. I was like,
No, I honestly, you did amazing. And like, if you ever have questions or need anything, like I'll send you my questions. Like I usually try to do a lot of like of the legwork, but sometimes I can't do the research because of work. So it's if you watch any of mine, you'll see where like sometimes I'm stumped and I'll pause, but
dude. But I think that's part of like being hard on ourselves, because you're seeing all these little flaws that I've watched, like probably 50% of what you've done.
Yeah.
And I don't notice any of that stuff, seem flawless.
Yeah,
so
I think that's a good point. We're very hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to that love thing, because like you have to love who you are, before you can truly give love to somebody else.
Yeah. No, I actually read something on social media the other day with Will Smith, I think, where he talks about his wife, right? He says, I'm not in charge of her happiness, but she's in charge of her own happiness and he's in charge of his own happiness. Yeah. And then you meet in the middle and then you both share happiness,
Yeah.
I mean,
that's joy. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
dude.
Like pure joy, where like happiness is a feeling for a moment, but if you can share that with something, then like joy really moves you, Exactly. It's like the movement of happiness. So yeah, man, I'm a big quote guy, so I love it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's amazing. Appreciate your time, appreciate the promptness of your response and saying, yeah, let's do it right now.
For sure. Yeah. And thanks for being flexible, man. Best of luck on your journey. And If there's anybody that you want me to connect you with, feel free to reach out. But yeah, just keep going.
That'd be awesome, man. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, hearing it from you definitely motivates me a little more. But to be honest, yeah, I mean, after seeing your coffee breaks, that's when I was like, I want to do that. Like, you really motivated me a lot.
Well, I'm so glad. That's very sweet of you, and thank you for sharing that with me, because it's all I can ask for, right? I think we go into things like, why am I even spending so much time doing this? But to see you and hearing positive feedback, or people kind of getting something out of a conversation, and I've been super lucky, because I feel like I'm getting so many gifts of all of these really smart, beautiful people, and I think that's the one thing of interviewing people, is just like, you're rewarded with like all of this wisdom that like you watching something afterwards, like, it's just, yeah, you'll experience it as you kind of have more of these talks, because I think my perception has changed of a lot of things.
Nice. Well, thank you very much again, my man. I appreciate that. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
And spend some good quality time with your wife, and maybe a sour beer or so,
Sounds good, man. Thank you
Until
so
next
much
time,
for
man.
spending the time.
Appreciate it.
Peace.
Goodbye. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.